Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business Live. I'm looking forward to talking to Gabe Cowan. Gabe, it's great to connect with you, CEO at Audio Design Desk. Looking forward to diving in. I just want to read this little bio of you. You're the CEO of Audio Design Desk, which won 2022 NAB Product of the Year, CS Innovator, and Fast Company's next big thing in tech. With its AI-assisted software suite that reinvents the process of creating audio for video. Comes with over 50,000 royalty-free sounds, loops, and music cues, and is integrated into most audio and video editing systems used by Netflix, HBO Max, Amazon Prime, and others, et cetera, et cetera. Probably soon to be used by me. Can't wait to learn more about it. Let's talk AI first, right? Because November 30th, the world changed. Yeah. Literally, the world changed. I use ChatGPT and Jasper every day as if it is. I have 7 virtual people that work with me. I consider ChatGPT the 8th. It is, and Jasper, because when I want to research, when I want to do something, when I need help writing, it's amazing. So let's dive into AI first and just kind of talk about how you're using AI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, so when we think about post, November 30th, and of course this existed before then, but the world kind of became aware of generative AI, which is a little bit different than how people were talking about AI before then. AI is sort of like, is spell check AI, or is the way that Google would try to finish your sentence AI? So you kind of see this slow growth and then this huge explosion. From how we're using AI is to identify how and where sounds connect to visuals. And so we have a system that understands the connection point between the visual and the sounds. And also inside of that same system is an understanding of how sounds relate to one another. So if it's, a sword hitting a sword, that sound understands, well, I'm a sword hitting a sword, but swords also hit other things. Swords hit, staves, and swords hits armor and other things. But I also understand that I am a weapon. And beyond being a weapon, I understand that I'm a sound effect. So there's all of these kind of relationships between the sounds that give it a bit of a knowledge of what makes it what it is and where it's meant to be placed.
Yeah. So, and I read in your bio, because I want to talk about sounds. You're a musician, you're a multi-platinum recording artist who's played and recorded with Jackson Browne and so many other people. And so it sounds like you kind of took your love of music and were able to actually incorporate it into your business and then layer in AI to really help multiply it. So I always love when I'm talking to people who kind of can incorporate their passions into things. And I think right now we're kind of in this space and time where it's you can take so many different passions and build something because of the technology that we have at our fingertips today. So true. Yeah. So just kind of talk about how that, evolved.
Yeah, so I did started as a musician and got really lucky right out of high school. I was signed to Geffen Records, and I'm this kid seeing the world for the first time, but also being paid to go on tour was amazing.
Yeah.
And shortly after, I got hired by a guy named Roger Corman, who's a filmmaker. The guy's made over 400 movies, and he makes these low budget movies, but everybody would come to LA and got their start with Roger Corman, James Cameron and Martin Scorsese and Jack Nicholson and Robert De Niro. I mean, the list goes on. Everybody we know from that generation started with Roger. And, so did I. He asked me to score a movie. And through that process, because it's an independent system, I wasn't siloed. I was allowed to see the whole filmmaking process. So I was coming down to set. I was helping with rewrites of all things as the music composer. And so I went back to film school. I got my master's degree in film directing, and I produced over 20 feature films and a bunch of other things. And you realize how important, time consuming and costly making sound is for your movies. When you test a movie, when you A/B a movie, with decent sound against a movie with like production sound or, sort of crummy sound, it's night and day. It's more important than visuals. Yeah. And yet all of the systems that were built to create the sound for your movies are entirely manual. It's like this searching process and this dragging process, and you're kind of listening and you're trying to place the sounds, and it's like 100% manual. So 6 years ago, I thought, I was doing the trailer to one of my movies, and I was trying to find these sounds to kind of create the soundscape for it. And I just had this moment where I was like, enough. we need to automate this system. We can create something. And so I started drawing the schematic on a whiteboard about how we would create what we now call sonic intelligence. And I got really lucky. Two things happened. One, a friend of mine from high school, a guy named Sam Music, it's his real last name, had become a pretty big sound designer. He did sound design for the trailers for Rogue One and World War Z and Spider-Man and all these things. And he was working at my studio right at that time that I was thinking about this. And so he saw that schematic and he's like, what is that? And I explained it to him and he said, I've got, 100,000 sounds, or I think it was 10,000 sounds at the time. I've got 10,000 sounds I was about to release through my, deal. I want to put them into this. Yeah. So suddenly it was an idea and I had some content, and my college roommate had become this like incredible programmer, early stages of YouTube and Apple TV and so forth. And so we just called him and we kind of pitched him the idea, and that led us on this journey to fixing sound for visuals.
It's amazing. It reminds me, I just was watching the Mark Twain Awards with Adam Sandler, and he was, did you watch it? It was great.
I watched some of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. I love Adam Sandler. I loved him more after it because he's just such a menschy guy.
Yeah, it's got heart.
But it was, his roommate was, here. And I mean, he just kind of, everybody just kind of, was in his path. But sometimes people can be in your path and you're not listening, and you're not listening to the universe, and you're not trusting your guts. And when you get to that point, like where you talked about, like, it just is like you said, it's enough. And I started building it on a screen, and then all of a sudden, sonic intelligence, kind of was birthed from that. I just want to kind of dive in because I think many people are at these crossroads right now where they're feeling their own enough, whatever that enough is. And but going from enough to building it on a whiteboard and mapping it out or writing it out or sharing it with someone, that takes a lot of courage. That takes a lot of courage for people to get kind of a little bit deeper and take the time and find the time. So what was your path to courage from enough to standing up, grabbing the Sharpie or whatever the thing is, and actually start writing? Because that's where I think people want to dive in. That's where I think people are stuck, Gabe.
Yeah, I want to highlight one thing you said and then answer the direct question. But you said trust your gut. And I do think we have a tendency, as we want to listen to people, we want to listen to advisors and be collaborative, to let go of what our gut is telling us, because there's other factors. And I dealt with this especially as a film director, right? There's so many people that are pushing you for time, or lose that shot, or do this thing. And I directed a few movies, but on one of the movies, I was basically unreasonable. I was just, this is my vision. We're getting this shot. I don't care. Give them sandwiches, whatever it is. We have to get the shot. And my producing partner at the time on the next movie kind of took me aside and he said, look, you were unreasonable on the last movie. I need you to tell me you're going to be reasonable on this one. And I said, okay. And I was. And the distance between the movie that I made where I was unreasonable and the one where I made where I was is night and day. I don't like the movie I made when I was reasonable. The movie I made when I was unreasonable was me going, this is my gut. I don't care. We've got to get this shot. This is the vision. Please, guys, this is going to last forever. I know you're not going to get to bed for another half hour.
Yeah.
And so I think that idea of trusting your gut and letting, like, the thing I always used to say and still say is, let me make the mistake. If I'm going with your idea for whatever reason, I'm allowing you to make the mistake. Let me be wrong here. But then, so in terms of the path to courage, I think, at least for me in this instance, it came out of frustration and anger, right? So I don't know what Yoda would say about frustration and anger leading to courage, but
he would say there's no try, only do.
Only do, right? Exactly. Right. Yes. But that visceral feeling of like, why is it like this? It can't be this way. And then you do a minute of research and you're like, everything's like this. The system in my case, all of the technologies that are used other than Audio Design Desk still are built around the ideas of a tape machine, which is a technology 100 years old. They're all digital representations of a tape machine. So I think for me, it was frustration and then looking at the market and going, this is stupid. And gosh, can I fix it? And so we went down this path, and I had some partners to help me is the one other thing.
I
didn't do it alone.
Gabe, how old are you?
I'm 49.
You're 49. When are you going to be 50?
In 9 months.
All right, good. So I turned 50 last year. I'm going to be 51 this year. And I just interviewed 12 juniors and seniors from the University of Michigan in the Entrepreneurial Club. And they were fascinating. They all have these amazing businesses. Some of them have even sold 1 or 2 or 3 of them. And that's what they're looking. They have such courage to see something that isn't working in an industry and then build something new. And they're diving in. And so Think Community, the reason I ask, don't think I was rude to ask Gabe his age, but the reason I ask is whether you're 49, 50, soon to be 51 like myself, you're a 20-something-year-old, you're in high school. One of the kids was in high school or had a business partner who was in high school. The world is looking at things and AI is amazing. I use it every day, but the human element of finding the cracks in something where you can build a business and layer in your passion. I don't think there's ever been an opportunity like there is right now, and there will be for the next decade because of the technology that's not even created yet. So I just want to kind of take this moment to empower everybody to really kind of go from there enough to the whiteboard. It's a powerful, and because I think even as you start to write, what ultimately comes from it may not even be what's in your head. It may be completely different, but if you don't get out of your own way, you can't get to the best part. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that and echo your sentiment. I think that what ChatGPT has done and what, the iterations of it, right? 3.5 and now with 4, and we're just going to keep going, is it democratizes the idea space. So if you have a problem and you want to solve it, you could come up with your own solution and GPT can help you. It could even help you program, right? Help you build the website, like every single element of it. And the way that I use ChatGPT often, yes, I do the parlor tricks where it's like, write a poem or do a thing in the voice of Dave Chappelle. It does amazing Dave Chappelle, by the way. If you haven't tried it, you got to try it. Or Jerry Seinfeld.
Well, I just wrote something. I just launched this. I always have people calling me that don't necessarily want coaching, but they're always calling me for opinions, like that 5-minute like validation, quick question. So I created a program for it. Like it's X dollars a month. And it's invite only, meaning I don't market it. But if you call, it's like you can join it. And so, and basically, I'll take your calls whenever you call me. If I'm in a meeting or something like that. But it's just to have access to call me for ideas and kind of brainstorm stuff. And so I wrote something, and then I said, rewrite this how Simon Sinek would write this. And then it rewrote, what I put together, and it was amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It is incredible.
Yeah.
I think one other thing that a lot of people don't approach yet ChatGPT to do is to think through complex problems.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I like the best about it. I was just dealing with something recently where we're trying to build some technologies. It's built on, what's called a tech stack. And I'm trying to figure out how the tech stack, how the different pieces are going to work together. Yeah. And I had created a job posting to find a guru who I was expecting was going to cost $500 to $1,000 an hour. I needed a real guru. Yeah. And as I'm waiting and I'm getting the resumes in, and a friend of mine is helping me look through them, I was like, let me chat with ChatGPT to start to figure out this problem. And I started to state the problem, and I started to ask it to ask me, because it'll iterate, right? The more personality you give it, the more it'll feedback. And so and it really did. Like, I left about an hour and a half conversation with ChatGPT knowing the answer that I could not unlock on my own. I would never be able to find on Google. Never. It would take me 5 days to do the research on Google. And so this idea of being able to think through complex problems and also build things, I think this is going to be, this is already dramatically democratizing this space.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about your company, Audio Design Desk. We haven't talked about that yet. So talk a little bit about what it is, what you do, how you're changing, the market. It's been, again, I know I said this earlier, I'll say it again. It was Fast Company's next big thing in tech. So talk a little bit about it, because it seems, I've done a little bit of research on it. It seems fascinating.
Yeah, so we, like I said, sound is unbelievably important when it comes to visuals. It is night and day for audiences. There's been tons and tons of tests about visuals and sound and what's more immersive, and hands down, sound is what brings audiences into the projects they're watching. In our case, it's mostly advertisements and television shows and YouTube videos and feature films. And so because we created this technology that understands the connection between the image and the sound, and where the sounds understand what they are, we're able to automate this entire process. A company called MusicTech, a magazine, did a test, and they said Audio Design Desk was 12 times faster than a competing product, which I assume was like Pro Tools or Logic. And that is exactly what we're going for. And the one other thing I want to say about it is, we meet a lot of people. It's a very fun software to show, because you're showing a scene and there's like no sound, and then you're clicking some buttons and the sounds are coming to life, and people go, like, in fact, we have a whole video of just people's reactions to seeing and hearing what we're doing. But it's a really fun product to show, and we're solving a lot for different people in the audio-visual community.
How does a business coach like myself use the product?
Well, you make videos all the time. The very top of this video, there was that great little tune, so you could make your own in that. You could make tons of different ones. A lot of videos would really be advanced by just little transition sounds when you're going between one thing to another. Obviously, background music is the thing people understand. And so in our system, you can create your own music using our AI, or we have tons and tons of music cues. Our system understands feel and mood and, sort of these types of terms where you can speak to it in emotional terms. But also, and this is one of the things with generative AI, you can send a script to our system, a screenplay, and our system will fill out all of the sounds that are needed for that screenplay, all the music cues that are needed, and just send you an email with, here's all the sounds, go ahead and use them. So there's a lot of different ways that it can advance the cause of anyone making, visual media.
Can't wait. I'm excited to dive in. Let's dive in real quickly. And I'd love to have you back again and talk about this in a little bit more detail, but I just want to recognize it. You serve on the boards of Inside Out Writers, and an organization that heals trauma through writing classes for kids in juvenile hall, and Common Sense Media, an organization with 85 million subscribers, which promotes better digital citizenship for our children. I'd love to have you back just to talk about that. I think it is. I've been reading some books on trauma lately, and when I think about some of the stuff that kids have gone through. It's beautiful. It's beautiful work. But tell us in kind of a quick minute what it is. But then I'd love to have you back and talk about it for like a full episode.
I was really lucky in this respect too. A friend of mine was writing a screenplay on Alzheimer's in prison, how Alzheimer's is handled in prison. But this was an idea he had. And we got to the point where we had broken the story, and now it was time to really do research. And I didn't have access to get into like an adult prison, but I did have a friend who was doing a lot of things in juvenile hall. And so we went with that friend and met all of these kids who were incarcerated. 14-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 15-year-olds. And some of them are facing life in prison. Technically, life is illegal to put a kid in prison for life. So what they do is they put them in prison for 200 years, and they claim that's not life. So I had the thought shortly after of, what if we started a screenwriting program inside of here? Because there's all of these great writing programs. What if we did a screenplay? And then one thing led to another. We were allowed to bring cameras in. We made a documentary called They Call Us Monsters, which won a bunch of awards. It's I made a lot of movies. I got to say, I'm not proud of all of them, right? It's like all of them, you were always working for them to be great. But this one is one of the ones that turned out really great. And so being introduced to this system and to this educational system and seeing, I'll give you one statistic, which is that kids who go through arts programs are according to Rand, are 87% less likely to recidivate. An arts program costs basically $1,000 per kid. Putting a kid into juvenile hall is $120,000 a year.
Yeah.
And yet the system, there's some question mark, which there obviously shouldn't be. It's better for the kid, to be able to spend their life outside of prison, and it's better for the community, for them to not to be able to expel their trauma.
Yeah.
That's Inside Outriders. It's a terrific program. I'm
Okay.
proud to be on the board, and we went through some really hard times, like financially, and now we're able to serve a lot more people.
Good.
And we're sort of on the other side of that.
Good.
Then with Common Sense Media, which is a very different platform, it's sort of a huge company. We do a lot of things. The things people sort of know us for is rating movies, and parents are like, well, should my kids see this, or can they go to this website, or can they read this book? And we give them some guidance. Like, we'll say, hey, we think that this is for 13 and above, but also here's why. So in my case, like, my 13-year-old is not going to have a problem with language. She's just not going to start swearing. So she can see things that are like R-rated that have swearing in it. But so that's what made the company sort of famous. But what we're actually doing behind the scenes is all of this incredible study. There's a study that was released just earlier this week. It's another one of these studies about social media's impact on teen girls.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to be getting the word out there about this stuff, because there is such an impact, and all social media systems aren't treated the same. The distance between how young teenage girls feel using TikTok versus using Snapchat is night and day. TikTok, they are 3 times more likely to feel depressed, isolated, alone, confused, and frankly suicidal. And so anyway, being part of these organizations is something I'm really proud about.
Good. I want to have you back and talk about your documentary, talk about what you're doing. I think it's so important. It's great. This has been, Gabe, this has been great. I love the talk. I love what you're doing. What an amazing career you've had. I think, community, I just want to encourage you again, some of the things that Gabe said, a lot of everything he said, I thought was great. One thing I want to extract is, if you're at your enough, take your first step and do something about it. And Gabe, I appreciate, all your insight and all your wisdom today. You can get to Gabe's website, add.app, A-P-P. Check it out. I'm going to check it out myself in more detail. And Gabe, thanks so much for being on today. We're going to have you back real soon, I hope.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, Gabe.